Good morning. We are going to be presenting, our presentation is going to be about groups, teams, and their leadership, Chapter 10. My name is Danny Abboud. We also have Gerardo Cuellar, Nelva Leal, Padilla, and Carolina Zubiaga. We're all in a conference call, and we're going to be presenting this PowerPoint together. Okay, Chapter 10, Groups, Teams, and Their Leaderships. Well, so we were supposed to pick a chapter from the book, and this chapter, it was really interesting. It caught our eyes. This chapter, it's able to show us leadership taking into consideration the groups and the teams. So basically, to put it in simple terms, how leadership is affected when groups are involved. Okay, leadership and groups. To be an effective leader, you must understand your own skill set, of course. You must know what you're capable of, You must know how to manage things, of course, how to motivate, but that's not enough. You can't just take yourself into consideration, only yourself into consideration. You must also take your subordinates into consideration, because when you're a leader, you're going to be leading people. You're going to try to want to motivate them, push them, try to make things more efficient, more effectively. So, with that being said, we must also take into consideration groups in this, We will be discussing different variables of groups and how they affect this leadership, like nature of groups, group size, developmental stages of the groups, group roles, and group cohesion. Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Nelva and I will be talking about nature of groups. Groups are two or more persons that are interacting with one another in such manner that each person influences and is influenced by each other. This means that both leaders and followers in a group must have a reciprocal relationship. People can be part of a lot of different groups. Uh, they can be part of sports groups, religious groups, professional groups, etc. Being part of a group can help a person feel connected to people. It can, it can meet their needs for affection and help discover oneself. It is important to differentiate groups from organizations. An organization is so large that people can rarely interact in a personal level, while in a group, all members interact due to its small size and to them having more things in common than with the whole organization. An organization can be such as a school, and then within that school, we can have different groups, such as teachers, the administration staff, custodians, the cafeteria staff, etc. I'm also going to be talking about group roles. Um, Group roles are the behaviors that a person is supposed to have according to the hierarchy within an organization. Roles in a group can be classified in task roles and relationship roles. Tasks move the projects along. Positions that focus more on the behavioral approach, which is more focused on satisfaction, motivation, and well-being of the whole group. This can be harmonizing, encouraging, and gatekeeping. Within role groups, there can also be problems that arise when assigning the group roles. One of these problems can be role conflicts, demands that are mutually inconsistent and incompatible to perform the job. This means that one or more individuals that the person is associated with have divergent expectations about what to do and how to behave, which are incompatible or incongruent with one another or with the completion of work. This can also happen as a personal role conflict, such as your own values don't align with what is asked from the organization. Another problem that can arise is role ambiguity. There is not enough, this means that there is not enough information to get a clear idea of the role assigned to them, either because it is incomplete or because it is interpretable in several different ways.
Hi, I'm Carolina and I will be talking about group size. Group size directly influences the productivity and the outcome of the group work. The recommended number of people in a group is usually between 5 and 7, but depending on the task, it could be larger or smaller. The effects of group size include leadership style and group effectiveness, and also social loafing. This is the tendency of some members of the group to put less effort in the task because they are working in a group.
Okay, this is developed stages of groups. Gerardo is going to be presenting this one.
Yes, so the developed stages of groups was introduced by Bruce Tuckman, a respected educational psychologist. The four clear stages of group development are forming, storming, norming, and performing. Uh, Next slide, the developed stages of groups continued includes forming, just started to come together as a team. And under the forming stage, has a lot of anxiety and uncertainty. The outcome is for the people to understand which are the group's goals and purpose and main outcome. In the storming stage, happens when the team members know and understand each other's roles. There's issues and conflict on the members' responsibilities and tasks and roles. Team members might require oversight to stay focused and on task. So managers need to keep people managing them, keeping an eye on them, make sure they keep doing what they're supposed to be doing. Under the norming stage, on the next slide, um, the norming stage is where the group has a unity and has strong, cohesive team. Usually, the group members understand and know each other's talents, strengths and weaknesses. So people get tasks according to what they know and what they know how to do well and understand and do it efficiently. During this stage, there's a sense of community, camaraderie, and unity, and teams are created. Under the performing stage, members are the highest point of productivity. They're very efficient. It requires little oversight from management. Basically, they can already work independently and work as a group, as a sole, well-oiled machine, if you will. Members trust each other. They're loyal and supportive. There's also a high level of autonomy, and as a leader, you can easily delegate work and on your subordinates' development and training. People usually focus as managers and leaders. People focus on during this stage. People focus on the people more, get them developed, and increase their the amount of skills and training and so on and so forth. Uh, Here we have a nice image about the four stages. We have forming, high degree of guidance needed for manager. Individual roles are unclear. Process usually not well established. Under storming, understand how team decisions are made. Purpose is clear, but team relationships are blurry. And under norming, relationships are well understood in the team. Commitment to team goals begins to work to optimize team process. And underperforming, team is committed to performing well, focuses on being strategic, and team runs well with little oversight.
So to continue on with Gerardo's points, group norms. Group norms serve as a code of conduct, a set of rules for behavior that is to be expected from everyone within the group. These group norms are set early on, and they function as a foundation for the group. Examples of some group norms are: we will speak to each other respectfully, we will avoid gender or ethnic-based humor, Promise to come prepared to your meetings and projects so that you can demonstrate value and respect for the time and convenience of others. If you commit on doing something, do it. Be accountable and responsible for the team. Basically, what this means, these are kind of like unspoken rules that each group individual expects from one another. And this also ties in sort of into being ethical. If you say you're going to do something like it was stated, then the group expects you to do it. If it's left undone, it'll harm the group and it will be dysfunctional.
Yeah, and Alan, I just wanted to mention something actually, and we have groups sometimes where like you said, some things just go on unmentioned, like I'm gonna do something because subconsciously I know that I shouldn't do it, or I know that I should do it. Of course, sometimes we have groups where there are people from different cultures. And of course, there are golden rules, but sometimes, since we may come from different cultures, we might be accustomed to different things, and that's the cultural difference, of course. So, with that case, I think it would also be good, we should state, like, some guidelines should be stated, of course, because what someone from a certain culture perceives as normal, someone from another culture might perceive as offensive.
Right.
And I do agree on Danny's statement. It's very important. We need to know and understand people's perception of different demeanors, or the way people communicate, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's very important.
Right. Yeah, you do need to take culture into consideration when knowing, I guess, what to expect, because everyone, depending on where they're from, they have a different understanding of what is right and what is wrong. But sometimes, for example, I guess another example of a norm would be just doing your work. If there's someone in the group, then they're expected to do work, and if they don't do it, that's not correct. So, but yes, culture does need to be taken into consideration as well.
Yeah, like sorry to interrupt again, Alan. I just remember this actually. I've worked in groups, and recently when I started working at Uniteller, I used to be out of the country. I used to work in the Middle East, in Lebanon, and when I came here, I noticed in my company there's a Mexican culture. There's that closeness. People are more caring and such. So when you want to delegate work, for example, or if you want someone to go through a certain task, I mean, it's very fair to just tell them, okay, do this, do that, do that, but sometimes people expect you, for example, to create small talk, or to get a little bit closer to them. So it just depends on the culture, yeah, of
Right.
how the group would work.
Right, because the culture is very Hispanic oriented, people want or expect for some emotion to be involved. If you're going to ask them to do something, they expect you to ask about something else at least, make them feel important and make them feel included always. So moving on to group cohesion. Group cohesion, well, first of all, we'll talk about just cohesion. So cohesion is the act or fact of forming a united whole. Group cohesion is a term that is used when trying to express how well that group works together and how the members within a group get along. Although cohesion is a multifaceted process, it can be broken down into 4 components, which are social relations, task relations, perceived unity, and emotions. Now, there is a difference, obviously, between group norms and group cohesion, because group norms are kind of like rules, unspoken rules, things that are to be expected, while group cohesion is the concept of how well the group actually works together and how they can complete tasks while knowing, as Gerardo said, each other's skills and special talents that they might have. So on the next slide, we will elaborate more on each component for the group cohesion. As I had spoken, the 4 components are social relation, which means any relationship between 2 or more individuals. Task relation is a descriptive model of leadership which maintains that most leadership behaviors can be classified as performance maintenance or relationship maintenance. Perceived unity is when the members of the group feel like there is unity between one another. Of course, emotions is that the members of the groups, they need to be emotionally involved. They need to be understanding of one another. And it's not just a one for all kind of thing. It's a group, it's a team. They all have one task that they need to complete. And in order for a group to be effective and efficient, there has to be group cohesion. If there is chaos within the group and the group doesn't get along and members don't respect one another, they don't show up on time, then that just is going to lead to a disaster.
Okay, the conclusion. So, after everything that we've presented, I believe it's safe to say that groups/teams, they go hand in hand with leadership, you know? I mean, what's leadership without, how could you be a leader if you have no one to lead, for example?
And how can you, sorry to interrupt, and how can you lead a group if there's no cohesion within the group? If no one, if there's chaos and there's no rule and no order, then the leadership style that's going to be used is, or even leading it at all, is going to be incredibly hard task.
Of course, yeah. So there are different aspects of a group, of course, as we saw, and with all of these aspects come their own setbacks and their own problems, for example, such as social loafing, role conflict, and role ambiguity, as my colleagues mentioned. So managers must be aware of these things in order to prevent them and in order to, keep efficiency at a high when it comes to groups. I could give a good example. Sometimes even me, myself, and my colleagues at work, sometimes I go to walk around to get some papers from the printer, for example, and I see a colleague of mine and we just start talking and catching up, and sometimes I get lost in thought. And of course I am. I'm kind of wasting time in a way. My productivity is going down. And my managers, they might notice. Of course, they don't tell me anything, but they walk around. They make their presence there, that they're in the room, and they make me subconsciously know that, okay, no, I should get back to work. Role conflict, role ambiguity too. Sometimes we might run into conflicts where there might be a goal, but some of the team members, they might not think it's ethical, due to their own morals, their own norms, their own culture, Sometimes in different cultures, different things are ethical. So before interacting with a group, we believe it's important to understand the group's norms, like we had mentioned about culture, the do's and the don'ts. And this comes from experience. I'm quite familiar with the Middle Eastern culture, and now I'm quite familiar with the American culture. I can give you an example. Like it was normal for us over there to be close, or to be really close. Like for example, I could grab my friend or grab someone on the shoulder and all that stuff, and they wouldn't feel like I'm invading their privacy or their space, However, here I notice that sometimes people they like to keep their space, They don't like to dwell too deep into their relationships. They like to keep it at a professional level. So understanding the nature of the group, I believe, is really important. So the group could avoid conflicts. And basically, the main purpose of a group is to increase efficiency and effectiveness, by creating synergy and working on a common goal. However, it is important to note that just because you have a group doesn't mean efficiency is doesn't mean you're gonna be really efficient or you're gonna achieve your goal faster. Sometimes, as Carolina mentioned, there might be a social loafing when people, they start depending on other people in their projects. And I mean, of course, as a university student, that has happened too. Sometimes not everyone does their equal part, for example. Sometimes there are team members that do 80% of the work and the other team members do 20. But yeah, and also the group size is really important. even sometimes the more the people, it does not necessarily mean the more efficient the group. Sometimes those extra people will cause an issue in the group, and it might make it slower and less efficient. But yeah, this is our conclusion. Would anyone like to add anything?
I just want to add that when it comes to leadership with groups, leading a group is much more difficult than leading, just one subordinate or one peer. And I know from experience, from being in many group activities, many group projects through school and extracurricular activities, even with your friends, if you think about it, think about 4 friends trying to decide where to eat. It takes maybe half an hour to come to a conclusion and decide where everyone's going to want to eat. So it works the same way in a group setting, in a work setting rather. And obviously, from experience, I've noticed that for the most part, groups, once they form, a leader tends to stand out. One of the group members usually tends to be a leader and say, okay, this is what we're going to be doing. This is what the schedule is going to look like.
Yeah, it's like no one appoints them to be a leader, for example, but it's just given his characteristic. He just stands out. And people actually, they could start depending on that person, subconsciously, in a way like, okay, let's see what this person thinks,
Yeah, exactly, correct.
Yeah.
And through that, like Danny said, unfortunately, sometimes that leader ends up doing like 80% of the work of the group. But it could be done as long as there's some group cohesiveness and the leader is able to take charge and get things done at the end.
Yep. Would anyone else like to add anything? Okay then. Well, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed our presentation.